One more after this, and I think this has been going since about the middle of August, hasn't it? But if the world, if we take the literal account of the Word of God in Genesis, at the age of people up through when it said they begat so-and-so and all of that, and we get a time frame of this earth being about 6,000 years old now. Some folks would laugh at that and say that that's foolish. And they say, well, what about the dinosaurs? Well, we talked about dinosaurs. Well, what about all those transitional fossils, or the missing links, or the cavemen that have been discovered? And there's really no such thing as a caveman except for the ones the Bible talks about. Some folks live in a cave. Osama bin Laden lived in a cave. You know, there are people today who live in caves, but actual cavemen, other than Geico commercials and Fred Flintstones, they never existed, really. And we'll look at that a little bit tonight as far as that goes. But cavemen, or what people call the missing links. You know, what is the missing link between us and the ape? If we evolved from apes, then you know, there wasn't an ape and that gave birth to a human. There were transitional creatures throughout the millions of years and all that. Where are they? Well, they've made some discoveries and some bones that they'll say are these, but we'll look at how that's not necessarily the case. The Bible tells us in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, that said, and God said, let us make man in our image. Now, a little side note, our image, who is he talking about? Probably the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, the Trinity right there. Let's make man in our image. But if we started out billions of years ago as a one-celled amoeba, evolved through the years from a land creature into a sea creature, into a land creature, into an ape and all that, then what exactly does God look like? I mean, but if he made us in his image, he said, let's make man in our image, then if we're looking at the theory or the religion of evolution, then we've got a problem here. But evolutionists will say that over the years we're getting bigger, we're getting stronger, we're getting smarter, we're getting better, and that's really the opposite of what the Bible teaches us. The Bible teaches us that you know, we're really getting worse over the years. Now, if you go back a couple hundred years and look at life expectancy and life expectancy today, we are living longer than they were then. In industrialized modern countries, we are. Modern medicine and all that, but throughout history, we're not. We're weaker, all of that, but someone's trying to make a monkey out of us, and that's evolution. And so let's look at this. A couple of those, I had those out of order, but the Bible teaches us we're getting worse. So anyway, they have discovered so many. They will tell you they have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to transitional fossils or cavemen or missing links and all that stuff. And have they found many things? Yes, they have. Have they proven any of them to be a transitional fossil? No. They've actually disproven themselves. But what's ironic, okay, Auburn beat Arkansas yesterday. What was the score? 51-10. Okay, Alabama beat Tennessee. My mind just went like 35-13, right? So if I came in here and I said that Tennessee beat Alabama and Arkansas beat Auburn. Now, if I didn't know any better, maybe I was just wrong. I mean, you know, shame on me. But if you say, no, that's not how it went. Alabama beat Tennessee, Auburn beat Arkansas. But if I continued to say that thing, then I'm lying once you've given me the truth, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So these are going to be disproven by evolutionists who argue that these aren't true, yet they still appear in the textbooks, in the museums, and they are argued as evidence that we have evolved over the years, and yet not one has ever been substantiated by other evolutionists and all that. There's so many arguments in there and disproven, yet they still show up in National Geographic, in high school, college textbooks. If you go to museums of natural history, things like that, they will still show up as evidence, yet they're not even true. And yet they're still saying that Arkansas beat Auburn and Tennessee beat Alabama, even after they've been told otherwise and none otherwise. The Nebraska Man, obviously we know where this remains was found, in Nebraska. Okay, 1922, this was discovered. This whole creature was created from one tooth that was discovered. They discovered a tooth and said, we have found the missing link. And from that missing link, they built the Nebraska Man, and they built his wife from one tooth. I mean, they're smarter than I am if they can build a whole. Valerie probably knows more about teeth than anybody in here, and I don't think you could probably build a whole person. If I gave you one of my teeth, you probably couldn't build me back based off if you never saw me before. But they built the whole Nebraska Man, this missing link, and they built his wife too, or his mate, or whatever you want to call her, out of one tooth. Okay? You with me on that? Out of one tooth. Then come to find out, it was the tooth of a pig. And so, there we go, back to Arkansas. It's when they played Nebraska, though. But Nebraska Man has been deemed a hoax or a fallacy or whatever. Yet, you'll still hear the Nebraska Man talked about and shown, and this was from one tooth of a pig. Okay? I'm not making this up. I promise you. Okay? The Piltdown Man, 1912. The Piltdown Man, about 500,000 years ago, is when the Piltdown Man lived. The New York Times would come out in 1912 that says, if you look on the left, Darwin theory is proved true. So Darwin, everything that he said about survival of the fittest and origin of species and evolution, all of this is true. Come to find out, it was a hoax, a deliberate hoax. They took a human skull and an ape's jawbone, filed it down so it would fit together, and showed it off. And for years and years and years, they did believe that this was a missing link. But since has been proven, but guess where you'll still find arguments for the Piltdown Man? In textbooks and in museums. Now, this was a deliberate hoax. Now, you can't help stupid sometimes. I get that. You can't help something that's deliberate. And wonder how many kids' faith were crushed in school out of the teaching of this. And before we start teaching children things contrary to the Word of God, we need to remember what Jesus said, that it would be better that a millstone were hung about our neck and drowned in the depths of the sea than to offend one of these little children. That's a serious thing right there. But the Piltdown Man was a hoax. Then you get to one that you probably all heard of. I don't know how many of y'all heard of Piltdown Man and the Nebraska Man, but we've all heard of the Neanderthal, right? I mean, that's a common one. Neanderthal was found a long time ago back, but since more than 50 years ago, Neanderthal Man has been proven not to be true, not to be a missing link, but an old man with arthritis. Okay? That's what the Neanderthal has been proven to be from multiple people. But they found a skull that appeared to be human, but he was bent over like an ape. So they thought, well, this is, his back is bent because he's slowly evolving upright. But instead of that, really, he was slowly bending over with arthritis. And he was bipedal, meaning he walked on 2 feet, so they thought, oh, this is the missing link. This is the missing link. And there have been there is something to this. Now, again, I never talked to these fossils or these remains that they found. So I can't sit there and tell you that this is the exact thing, but I will tell you, based off what we talked about 2 weeks ago in the Garden of Eden and that theory, some things that go along with that. Now, they found over 300 of these skeletal remains and all that in different places, and Neanderthal comes from the Neander Valley in Germany, all of that, that's why it's named that. But the brains were 13% bigger than modern man. The size was roughly about the same. So are we saying, well, maybe this is a missing link? I mean, 13% bigger brains on average, all of this, so they're different than us. Are we saying that there may be something different? They have a brow ridge in many of these that were larger than what we typically have today. So now are we saying, did we find something? Now, okay, before we get there, so they gave the skull to 9 different artists who created 9 completely different images. You know, if you take this skull, now put on the muscles and the facial, the skin, all of that to see what it might have looked like. They came up with 9 very different looks. Some of them looked ape-like, some of them looked human-like. Which ones do you think they went with? They went with the ape-like ones. And so here's a closer shot of that. You know, larger brow ridge and all this, but then upon further examination of the bones, a man who happened to be an orthodontist by trade but was very skilled in bones and the study of that and all of that, they looked at the Rhodesian man, or more commonly known Neanderthal, and said that you must understand that this skull really cries out disease more than anything. The teeth are badly decayed and the bones, the bone of the skull are extremely thick, and they talk about how it screams of a very old age. Now, without looking around the room, when you get about 18 or 20, vertically you'll quit growing, okay? You might grow horizontally after that, but vertically you'll quit growing about 18 to 20 years old. But there are facial bones in the face that never quit growing, especially on some people more than others. Now, not everybody look at Emmett, but when you get to be an older man, I'm just kidding. But Emmett's not one of these, but have y'all seen, and I'm not trying to be ugly or impolite or anything like this, and Emmett's a good looking man, I'm not saying anything, but have y'all ever seen some old folks that had just huge noses and huge ears? Have y'all seen that? Because there are bones within older people that never quit growing. Now, we look at the flood, and pre-flood living to be 900 years old. After the flood, immediately 400 years old, then 200, then 100. Now we get to a point where we're about 70 to 80 years in the life expectancy. If you found somebody who may have been post-flood 200 years old, that brow ridge could have been enormous. And they have found in some older people a brow ridge that matched that of what was labeled Neanderthal. Now, since then, skulls and observing that, the time frame, the species and everything have been denied that it was anything other than a human. And so no real honest person who believes in evolution will say that the Neanderthal is anything other than an older, possibly diseased human. And so that came to be basically from that. Now, brow ridge never stops growing. It could be a man of old age. And so then we get to this. Now, this is one that you've probably heard of. Probably one of the more commonly known. You've heard of Neanderthal, but here's one that they gave a specific name. Australopithecus africanus now, but more commonly known as Lucy. Y'all heard of them finding the remains of Lucy? Y'all heard that? And Lucy was discovered in Ethiopia. Her bones in 1970. Well, I'm going the wrong way. 1973. Okay. They found 40% of the. No, that's not really Lucille Ball, but you know. They found 40% of Lucy's bones, what they dubbed Lucy. Okay. Now you look at the skull, and it's completely shattered. You don't have much of a skull to go by, okay? Just keep that in mind for just a second. But 1973, Donald Johanson was on a grant. He was in Ethiopia, and they discovered Lucy 2 weeks before his grant was going to run out and not be renewed. Okay? Now, there's motivation right there to start finding something. But 2 weeks before his grant would run out, they found the remains of Lucy, 3 foot tall, what is really a chimpanzee, but the skull was crushed beyond recognition. Yet, the textbooks are going to say, the textbooks are going to do an illustration or a drawing that has it half ape and half human. Now, how do they know that? Lucy, if you see an illustration or if you see the model, there's one in the St. Louis Zoo. If you see a model of Lucy, it will be half human, half ape in its face. How do they know that? They don't. Anyway, his grant money was about to run out in 1973. Discover that now. He named it Lucy because at the time he was listening to the Beatles, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, which some people think that song's about LSD and maybe that's what he was on. But the face that they created from that, half human, half ape, yet we have no idea what that face looked like. Now, is this education or indoctrination? It's indoctrination. And then if you go to the St. Louis Zoo, well, hang on, I'm not there yet. Okay, here's another little something about Lucy. Okay, they found a knee that they said, well, this is Lucy's knee, and it's transitional because it's not completely straight like a monkey's would be. They failed to mention that they found the knee a year earlier over 1.5 miles away, 200 feet deeper in strata than where they found the rest of the body. So if that's the case, and the whole knee is what they were hinging this around. This knee was transitional, but this knee was 1.5 miles away, 200 feet deeper in the dirt than where they found the rest of the remains. So if that's the case, I mean, how fast was this train going that hit it? That hit it, knocked the knee that far away. So Lucy is not anything that they will truthfully argue is the case. But they said Lucy, they were proving that with this knee that they found 1.5 miles away from the rest of the body, that the femur was angled instead of straight like a chimpanzee's would be. Yet it's been proven, and it's a fact that many tree climbing chimpanzees have angled femurs, and so this is nothing but a chimpanzee. And then in the St. Louis Zoo, this is where I thought it was a minute ago. In the St. Louis Zoo, they made an illustration, again, with a face, with a head that's half ape, half human, and they gave it human feet and human hands, yet no feet or no hands were ever found to sit there and say what they look like. So these transitional fossils are more the imagination than they are anything to do with science. So, okay. So we'll get off that for just a second, and I'm getting close here. In Africa, they found hardened volcanic ash that they dated back 3.75 million years ago. Again, we talked about some of the fallacy with carbon dating and all of that, but 3.75 million years ago, and they found human footprints that were hardened into this ash before humans ever could have been there. Now, I don't believe that ash was 3.75 million years old. Okay, that's too old. But they found human footprints, barefoot footprints in there. And these evolutionists were saying, well, they look like human footprints. Wow, this is 3.75 million years old. And you'd think that were human footprints because there's no other animal that has footprints like this except a human. They're dancing all around the truth, yet they can't get to it. I mean, you're so close. You're so close. Okay, 3.75, and they found these, and then experts in this would say, experts, I use that term loosely, said the form of his foot was exactly the same as ours, weight bearing, the pressure patterns, everything. And go on to say that if we didn't know this ash was so old, we would say that it was a human. Well, what the heck do you think it was? I mean, I guess they'll come up with those ancient alien theories too. That they argue that scientists will argue too. And so they're dancing all around the truth. They find this ash that they know many of years ago when humans didn't live, yet they found these footprints. Well, what else could it be? There's the Piltdown Man from China. Was made out of pieces of skull, and they found him in the 1920s. All the evidence and everything was lost during World War II. All of it came up missing, but what they found, and let me look at this just so I make sure. They found monkey skulls that were smashed, and they found human tools. And so they said, wow, monkeys are learning to use tools. We found smashed monkey heads and tools. These monkeys are learning to use tools. Well, what were they trying the tools out on themselves? That works. Smashed monkey heads? Think about this for a second. Why would you find smashed monkey heads and tools? But what they also didn't mention is 10 human remains were also found with these monkey bones. So it wasn't a missing link, and in many countries, China being one, and I'll eat anything, but I don't think I'd eat this, but monkey brains are a delicacy. How about they were eating monkey brains? Why would you find tools and smashed skulls thinking that they were learning to use tools? Idiotic. Okay, but anyway, Homo erectus, we've all heard of Homo erectus, right? And the reason he's so famous, this transitional fossil, is because by that erectus it means when man stood up straight, right? When we started to walk like a man instead of hunched over and scraping our knuckles and all of that. So Homo erectus, okay? This is where they started walking up, or he was called Java Man to begin with, and about 500,000 years old, they say. And Dubois would find him. He took a bunch of convicts and said, go find some skulls, go find skulls. We're trying to find the missing link. And so what they found was the cap of an ape skull. They found 3 human teeth, a thigh bone, and a year later, they found the thigh bone a year later and 50 feet away from that. But they didn't mention they also found 2 normal human skulls. And then when they came back after he died, they found a bunch of human remains, bones, buried under the floor of his house. So Homo erectus, even evolutionists. Now, are evolutionists all liars? I would say that many of them believe a false religion, because I don't believe evolution is a science. I do believe it's a religion. I don't believe many of them are intentional liars, but the ones who are trying to prove science truth, that will say that, well, the Piltdown Man or Homo erectus or Lucy, that can't be true. Yet, in their Holy Grail, their Bible, their way of teaching, here are these transitional fossils. That shows that, yes, you're a man today, but your great going back grandfather was an ape, was a chimpanzee. And we evolved, and we're getting better and better. And there could be no God that we were made in the image of. This is all a cosmic thing, and we're getting better. And so this eliminates the need, or eliminates God himself. If there was no creation, then there may not be any creator. And that's what this is all about. In the last days, there will come scoffers, walking after their lust, saying, where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers had fallen asleep, all things continued as they were before the flood. Now, mistakes are okay. I make mistakes, you make mistakes, all God's children make mistakes, okay? And we know that. We all make mistakes, but if we've been corrected on a mistake and we continue with it, then it becomes a lie, okay? We can misspeak and all of that, but evolutionists will argue many of these that they have been disproven, yet they still appear in textbooks. There are laws that exist in just about all 50 of our states saying that textbooks need to be accurate, factual, and current. Yet, they're not enforced. Those laws are not enforced. You know, the Bible said that if this is going to be taught, any teacher needs to be careful of what they're teaching, because Jesus said it was better that a millstone were hung about their neck and they were drowned in the depth of the sea than to offend one of these little children. I can't imagine how many people's faith, how many children's faith in high school, or if they go on to college, or you see it in children's books today, even Dr. Seuss, where they, slowly but surely, that rat poison is making its way in there, and we don't believe that there was a creation, and therefore we don't believe in a creator. And that's a sad statement on the way our country is today. There was never a caveman, other than maybe Bin Laden. David hid in a cave for a while, Elijah in a cave, but there was never a caveman. We'll stop there. Next week we'll look at the flood, and we'll look at how it may have came about, where all the water came from, where it went, what it did to the earth, why we have all the geologic columns and layers of dirt where they're finding certain fossils in this layer of dirt and all of that, and the sorting, where the Grand Canyon come from. Didn't that happen by a little river that happened over millions of years that carved out the Grand Canyon? Or maybe it was evidence of a worldwide flood. So we'll look at that next week. And I think I'm done.
Amen. Let us stand. Let's go with verse 7. I still remember, Scott, hit them lights back here, right? I graduated from McAdor. We didn't have the greatest science teachers in the world. I'll just say it that way. I never had an argument till I got to college. And then when I got to college and got faced with all these things, I still remember having issues with every bit of it. And I can still remember preaching on it one Sunday night at Sparks Gap many moons ago because of the conflict that it caused me. But I love seeing this laid out and proving the way it's supposed to be, and I appreciate Brad doing that. Let's sing a verse of the invitation.
Page 330 in the blue book.
Everybody here. Brad, come on the back. You ain't getting enough folks to hug your neck and shake your hand. Thank you for all you're doing. You always sit to the side and then we just miss. Amen. Jake, would you dismiss